Hi guys, so I'm finally here to do my wrap up of my Instagram chooses my TBR that I did like last July. Well over a year ago at this point. And those books that I selected, or that you guys selected if you took part in my Instagram poll, was Hush Hush by Becca Fitzpatrick, The Final Empire, which was book 1 of the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson, and The Midnight Queen by Sylvia Hunter. So Hush Hush was the first of this selection that I decided to pick up and read. Just so you know, I kind of wanted to discuss whether I was going to sort of buy the rest, library loan any of these, or just completely DNF series, you know, depending on sort of my enjoyment of the books. Quite well, this one in particular was one of the eldest books out of these. I think I got this when I was a teenager back in school, when I was really interested in getting into the more sort of angel fantasy. So I just want to talk really about book 1, just because this is a bind up of Hush Hush and Crescendo. Crescendo is book 2, and spoiler alert, I ended up reading book 2 just because I felt obliged to, in a way, because they were connected, and because I was so invested in the story at this point, because I'd read 2 books and it was, well, at the time I thought it was a trilogy. I was like, let me go and read book 3. Then I realised, oh, it's 4 books. I must have known in the past, but it slipped my mind. So then I read book 4, and you know what, this series as a whole I actually didn't really like, so I don't know why I put myself through that. But in saying that, the last 2 books I ended up wow, that didn't make any sense. I ended up borrowing from the library, so I didn't buy any more of the book. I didn't DNF it. I just felt like I kind of was somewhat interested in finishing the story and seeing how everything panned out. But to be fair, like, I feel like maybe the highest rating I gave all of these books is maybe like a 2.5, maybe a 3, and I can't remember which book that was for. So just so you know, Hush Hush is about a main character called Nora, who sort of falls for, well, who sort of piques the interest, or is interested by, this guy called Patch, who, you know, is very Twilight-esque in the sense of he's very moody, brooding. They catch each other's eye in, like, I think probably science class, and in this case, like, they're forced to be partners together or something like that. I don't know. As this was one of the books that I read earlier on in the year, kind of the details have slipped my mind, but let me just read you the back quickly. Try as she might, Nora can't escape her dark and deep attraction to the mysterious, arrogant Patch. But things aren't adding up. Nora's having terrifying hallucinations. Patch knows far, far too much about her. As dark, death-filled secrets are revealed, Nora begins to realise that her newfound love comes at a cost. It just might kill her. So as usual, I just want to quickly preface everything by saying everything is on Goodreads if you prefer to read like in-depth reviews as opposed to sort of like the abridged version. So I'm just going to shoot out here, or try to, because I know I do ramble. So, you know, I'm just going to really focus on book 1. My experience with this, I kind of knew it wasn't for me anymore. I might have liked it way more if I had picked it up around the time that I received it, back when I was in that sort of teenage state of mind where I was interested in all the broody romances, you know, the dark fantasy stuff like that. But me now, in the place of where I'm at the minute, it kind of just wasn't for me. So for the overall bind up, I did give a 3 stars. For the overall bind up, I did just give it a 3 stars. The first one, Hush Hush, I gave a 3 stars, and then Crescendo I gave a 2.5 stars. So with Hush Hush, I think the main reason I didn't enjoy it is just because I really couldn't connect with our character Nora. I found her so incredibly frustrating and annoying, and I just couldn't warm to her. And the way she sort of carried on, and I don't know, she just really irritated me. And V as well, her best friend in this, just bothered me as well. I just couldn't really stand them both, either together or apart. They just rubbed me the wrong way, basically, and because of that I didn't have any sort of connection to the characters. I didn't really care. Well, I mean, I must have cared enough because I carried on finishing the series, but I didn't really care about whether they lived or died or anything like that. I just was kind of nosy to see how it panned out, but I wasn't really invested in their lives. More about how it ended now that I'd come so far, if you know what I mean. We had that one irritating trope where miraculously all the parents just seem to be out of the way when shit's going down. And I was like, how unbelievable is that? These guys, I don't even know how old they were supposed to be really, like maybe 16. Like, where are your guardians? How are you able to like sneak around late at night in the middle of nowhere? I mean, to be fair, yeah, there are some wild teenagers these days, but some of the stuff they were getting involved in, why didn't their, you know, parents, guardians, other have more of an interest, more of a like firm putting their foot down, saying, what are you doing, what is happening in your life? Like, maybe just common curiosity in the least. We didn't have that. I felt like I just couldn't see past that, you know. And I know when it comes to fantasy and stuff like that, you're not going to have things being completely believable, but when it's like an urban fantasy and you're following the perspective of a teenager and things like that, it just bothers me. I don't know why. So again, that was just something frustrating that I couldn't oversee when it came to this book, and I feel like it's something that lingered perhaps throughout the whole of the series. I did find the pacing as well a bit off. Like, at times things just happened and I was like, whoa, how did we get here? It was just too quick. Like, I didn't have time to process it, and yeah, pacing was off for me. It's one of those strange things. I gave it 3 stars because, funnily enough, it was an okay read just to pass the time. I didn't think, well, I mean, obviously I thought a bit too much about it because of the things that irritated me, but in terms of generalising, it wasn't something that stuck with me for a long time. I wasn't thinking about it like, oh, I remember that one scene that da-da-da-da-da. It was just something to pass the time. It turned into a little bit of a guilty pleasure as I was just reading it, but once I put it down, I forgot about it. I didn't think much about it until I remembered to pick it up again, if you know what I mean. And again, that lasted throughout the whole series. So yeah, I did end up reading the 2 that I had, and then I borrowed the other 2 from the library. I would probably eventually, because I'm trying to like unhaul slowly but surely, it's something that I'd probably unhaul in the future. I don't reread too often, but I would not reread this. Again, I'm probably just not the target audience for it anymore. Who's to say? I might have enjoyed it back when I received it, as I mentioned earlier, but it just wasn't for me. I enjoyed it on like a surface level, just to be like, oh, okay, this is somewhat entertaining, but even then it was kind of like, ugh. So yeah, sorry to start this video kind of negatively. Let's move on to the next book. The next thing I read out of this selection of Instagram Chooses My TBR was Brandon Sanderson's The Final Empire, one of the Mistborn books, and I've got to say, I bloody enjoyed this so much. I've got to say, starting reading these books from this selection, I was like, oh my god, please don't let this like disheartening feeling carry on throughout the whole of this selection. But this one picked right up. I really enjoyed it. Proper invested into everything that was happening, and I was really agitated and excited to start the next one, but I don't have the next book, and it is definitely something that I will want to buy and own. So yeah, definitely not going to DNF this series. It has been a little while since I read the first book now, so I don't know how much longer it will be until I continue with the series. There are other things I'm reading and sort of prioritising and stuff, but this is something that I would definitely want to continue with, carry on with the Mistborn world, try and get grips of all the other books that Brandon Sanderson has written within the world, and like the interconnecting stories and stuff like that. So let me read you the back of this one. So it says, for 1,000 years the ash fell. For 1,000 years the scars slaved in misery and lived in fear. For 1,000 years the Lord Ruler reigned with absolute power and ultimate terror, divinely invincible. Every attempted revolt has failed miserably. Yet somehow hope survives. A new kind of uprising is being planned, one that depends on the cunning of a brilliant criminal mastermind and the courage of an unlikely heroine, a scarce street urchin who must learn to master allomancy, the power of a Mistborn. What if the prophesied hero had failed to defeat the Dark Lord? The answer will be found in the Mistborn trilogy, a saga of surprises that begins here. So honestly, it was kind of like a heist story, and I didn't think I'd enjoy reading a heist kind of plot, but I guess that being within a fantasy setting made it something that intrigued me. Again, this is actually a book that I've had sitting on my to be read shelves for quite a few years. I think it was something one of my really good friends, Chloe, got for me for a birthday one year, again when we were teenagers, and maybe in college or a little bit before that time. And honestly, from then I really wanted to pick it up, but I think I got a bit too much involved with the booktube world and seeing all the books that people were talking about from Brandon Sanderson, it got me a bit overwhelmed, and I was like, oh, I don't really know where to start, I'm very confused, have I got the right book, do I start here? And I think just thinking and overthinking those things pushed me away a little bit, but the Instagram Chooses My TBR gave me the push I needed to read this, and I'm so glad that I got to it when I did, because this is fantastic. I gave it a 5 stars. From the beginning, I really couldn't wait to just find out everything. I was super hooked, I feel like, from the start. Like, the characters, well, we kind of have like 2 kind of main characters. The girl whose name I've completely forgotten, Vin, was a really interesting character to read from. She's definitely a flawed character, but she sort of owns that, and it doesn't make her, you know, sort of stupidly flawed. It's for the most part mistakes that are understandable and mistakes that feel very human and real. So yeah, I did really enjoy her, and I loved the meeting between her and our other main character, Kelsia, who, you know, Kel. That was really cool. It actually kind of confused me because I thought something else happened, and then I had to reread it, and I was like, oh wait, no, this is what happened. But I did enjoy them kind of meeting and not realizing things, and then, you know, it coming on from there. I thought together, as the plot increased and we learned more about this heist, and we learned other characters that were going to be involved in this, sort of trying to basically fix this world, this corrupt world under the Dark Lord's rule, I just thought everything came together amazingly. The story proper fleshed out, the story proper became something that I really cared about, again with these characters as well. There were like deaths that I was devastated by. There was just everything that I wanted and more. I'm really gushing at the minute, like trying to articulate my feelings. I'm really word vomiting. Again, I've got a proper review. It does it's hidden on Goodreads because it may have spoilers, but if you read, I believe if you read it from the desktop site, the spoilers themselves are actually blocked out, but for some reason on the mobile apps now, it just blocks the whole thing out and it doesn't hide your spoilers when you read it from a mobile or whatever. So just to warn you. But this was fantastic. I don't want to rave too much about this because I know I'm not making any sense, but definitely so excited that I finally started a Brandon Sanderson book, and this one is definitely making me want more. And then lastly, sadly, one that is kind of going a bit full circle and ending not negatively but sort of not the best. The last book I read for that little Instagram challenge thing was The Midnight Queen by Sylvia Hunter, book 1 of the Midnight Queen trilogy. This is a stunning cover, and I think it's definitely something that certainly pulled me in when I first bought this book, as well as I think the second, and I don't know if I have the third, I think I have the second book. I saw these in, what is it called, The Works, and I just thought they were stunning books. I read the back and I thought, oh, that mildly interests me, let me just get them, they're a decent price, I'll read them eventually. And honestly, it just fell a bit flat for me, to be honest. Let me again read the synopsis for you. So, Grey Marshall's Britain is a fragmented kingdom of many tongues, many gods and many magics. But all that concerns Grey right now is returning as soon as possible to his studies and setting right the nightmare that has seen him disgraced and banished to his tutor's home without a trace of his powers. That is when he meets the professor's daughter. Although she has no talent of her own and has been forbidden by her father to pursue it, Sophie Calendar longs for a magical education, but she started a bookish rebellion in her father's library long ago, and a meeting with Grey sets off a series of events that will lead them to uncover a conspiracy at the heart of the kingdom and into the legend of the Midnight Queen who vanished without a trace years before. So, straight away I felt like this made no sense to me. That part where it says Britain is a fragmented kingdom of many tongues, many gods, many magics, that sort of went out of my head a little bit, and when I just came to that sort of realisation within the story, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't understand the different, I don't know if you want to call them cultures, I didn't understand the different languages, and I didn't understand this Britain. I didn't get it. I was very confused. I felt like that might have been because of the writing. I didn't kind of get on with it. I felt like the writing particularly was very over the top, like very flowery, and I feel like it was probably drawing inspiration from the time period, because I would say this is a historical fantasy slash kind of romance, not really romance, but it's there, mainly historical fantasy. And I feel like the actual sort of narration of the story was drawing on this historical context, but it was almost too overwhelming because I needed that a little bit of detachment to not pull me out of the story, but for them to be speaking like of their era and the narration to be more understandable, so I could feel connected and sort of understand what was going on. But it sort of kept that whole historical feel, and I was very confused with the meanings of certain things. I felt like everything went around the houses, and I just got a bit lost and confused at what the actual point of like a sentence was. Do you know what I mean? Wasn't very keen on the world building. Again, all these different like factions of Britain, just I couldn't understand it, honestly. I don't know if that's just me being an idiot, but I didn't get it, and that frustrated me. I don't know, I also wish that it was heavier with magic. There wasn't a lot to do with magic in the first good chunk, to be fair, but then when the magic did just kind of come into play, I was a little bit more at ease, because at that point it was turning into something that I wasn't interested in. I came for the magic really, and it wasn't giving me that, you know. So I was a little bit like, oh come on, pick up a little bit, give me what I want. But yeah, I mean, this is something that I don't really have. I mean, I did kind of get somewhat invested in the end, but it wasn't like incredibly so. I have the second book, so I'll probably do what I did with Hush Hush and read the second book. It is only a trilogy, so I'll probably just find the other one in the library, or perhaps if I see it again for like cheap, I'll pick it up. But again, this is a trilogy book series that I'd probably unhaul eventually, because it wasn't really what I was after. It didn't give me what I wanted. And it's not to say it's a bad book at all, it just wasn't for me. I think I was mainly overexcited by the cover rather than whether I thought if I would truly enjoy it. In saying that though, I've got to say, characters grew on me. Sophie, who is one of our main characters, I loved her guts and determination in the face of being told no. Her defiance against what she thought she should do was amazing, especially in opposition to her father, who's like, you can't learn magic because you're a girl, and just the bigger plot and the schemes around that was an interesting plot. It just didn't grip me as much as I hoped. Again, other characters, Joanna, her sister, really adored. Gray grew on me. I loved how kind of he became more confident. Oh my god, my voice, I was stuttering, wow. He became more confident, and I liked that. But just overall, it's not something that I would, again, rave about. I don't know, it wasn't for me. So those, did I even tell you my review? I gave it 2.5 stars out of 5. So those are my reviews for the books that I finally got to, that were chosen by the Instagram peoples like last year, and that's it. I hope it gave you some context. I don't know if I'll do another one of these soon, and hopefully get to them soon, but I have like a certain amount of books that I do want to get to, so I mean, I'll probably try and read through the ones that I actually want to read first, and then when I get a bit stumped for something, I might try it again with a different selection. But yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed. Let me know if you've read any of these, and if you have any different perspectives on these. Perhaps you enjoyed the ones that I didn't. Perhaps you hated The Final Empire whilst I loved it. Let me know. Again, maybe you read Hush Hush when you were younger and you enjoyed it, and you read it again and maybe you didn't. I don't know. Just talk to me. I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you again so much for watching. I'll speak to you hopefully in another video soon. Bye bye.